Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Puzzle Academy. I'm Professor Buster, and in today's lesson, we'll be talking about our movement options. This is the second video in this series, so if you haven't yet, I would recommend watching the previous lesson in which we covered the basics for how to play first. You can find that video in this card up here. Also, a correction to the last episode's homework, I may or may not have forgotten that Endless Mode doesn't have numbered difficulty levels. What I meant to say was to play on Easy Mode, with the speed level set to 1. Otherwise, let's begin the lesson. Panel is an action puzzle game after all, so movement ends up being a very important component. And, unlike its contemporaries, like Tetris and Puyo Puyo, Panel is played by manipulating already existing blocks to make matches rather than building them up one piece at a time. This puts a much greater emphasis on speed, but allows for much more free-form gameplay. As such, it's important to consider not only how your cursor can move, but also the different ways in which you can move your panels. We know from our previous lesson that we can freely move our cursor in any direction using the movement keys. In my case, I'm using my controller's D-pad. You'll notice, however, that there's almost no limit to how much you can move around. Your cursor can go almost as quickly as you can press the buttons. Of course, when you're first starting out, it may prove difficult to navigate all that quickly. That's where DAS, or Delayed Auto Shift, comes in. When holding down a direction, your cursor will move one space in that direction, but after a short delay, will begin automatically shifting in that direction incredibly quickly, thus the name. You can't move past the borders of your well, but DAS can be very useful in a few situations. Still, some players prefer not to rely on it, so it's up to you to decide where and when you want to make use of it. Now that we know a bit more about moving the cursor, let's talk about the panels. The ability to manipulate your panels effectively is key for improving at the game. We already know that we can swap blocks using the cursor. You actually have two independent swap buttons, which default to A and B on a controller. Some players like to alternate between each swap button, and having two of them also makes a few tricks easier to pull off, so it's a good thing to keep in mind. It's possible to swap blocks incredibly quickly, so don't worry about timing and just play at whatever speed you're comfortable with. When you need more panels to work with, you can accelerate the rising of your stack by pressing either the L or R buttons. This doesn't work unless your stack is already rising though, so it doesn't work, for example, while blocks are clearing. Blocks are affected by gravity, so if you move one over a gap, it'll fall down. This action is commonly referred to as a down stack, since doing so, well, lowers your stack. Be aware that once you downstack a panel, there is no way to move it back up. Sometimes it can be beneficial to leave panels where they are, even if it means your stack is a bit closer to the top. But that's a topic we'll cover at a later date, and it's well outside the scope of this video. If panels fall into a match, it will clear as normal, but blocks cannot create a match until they are considered to be on the ground by the game, so if there's a match midway down a gap, it'll simply fall past. And now, the most important part of this episode. If you take nothing else away from this lesson, at least take this. You can still move your cursor and swap panels even while a match is clearing. One final thing to keep in mind is that once you've made a match, no blocks can be moved past that match until it has disappeared completely. Even if a block has visually popped away, it still leaves behind a temporary invisible barrier. This concept is known as a clear wall. A short time after the final block pops, this clear wall disappears, allowing you to move blocks into those spaces again. Well, that was a lot to cover. The movement and gameplay in Panel is very freeform, so it's honestly easier to list all the things you can't do than it is to list what you can. Next time, we'll be talking about some basic chaining techniques, which lay the foundation for creating longer chains. But until then, here's your homework for this lesson. In puzzle mode, clear Classic Set 1. This is identical to the first 10 stages in Panel de Pon, so you could clear them in either game. Thanks for watching. The data shows that if I put up an end screen, ask you to subscribe, and show you this meme of a graph, my numbers will go up. And, well, I am aiming to hit the big 1K, so if you enjoy Puzzle Academy, consider supporting the channel. But until next time, class is dismissed.